The massive holographic display dominated the United Earth Council chamber, projecting the sneering face of High Ambassador Xerix of the Helian Empire. His crystalline features caught the light in fractals, creating an intimidating display of natural majesty that had cowed countless civilizations before. But Commander Sarah Chen stood unmoved, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she faced humanity's would-be conqueror. Your species has exactly one solar rotation to submit to imperial authority, Xerix announced, his translator rendering his crystalline vibrations into crisp English. The Empire requires your resources, your technology, and your complete submission. In return, we offer you the privilege of survival. The chamber remained silent, save for the soft hum of environmental systems and the barely audible breathing of the 24 most powerful humans on Earth. Sarah studied the alien's features, noting the subtle signs of contempt in the way his crystal segments aligned, a detail that had taken xenobiologists years to decode. Ambassador Xerix, Sarah replied, her voice steady and clear. Earth appreciates your generous offer. However, we require clarification on several points before we can provide our response. A ripple of crystalline fragments, the Helian equivalent of an irritated sigh, cascaded across Xerix's form. There is nothing to clarify, Commander Chen. The Empire's terms are absolute. We have conquered 17 civilizations more advanced than yours. Your primitive attempts at space travel and your barely functional defense systems are nothing compared to our might. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Indeed. Then you won't mind providing us the full rotation to properly consider your terms. After all, as you say, we're no threat to you. The crystalline being's colors shifted to a deep purple, a sign of satisfaction that Sarah had been waiting for. Granted, but do not mistake our patience for weakness. When the sun rises tomorrow over your capital, we expect your surrender. The alternative, Xerix's form shimmered ominously, will be most unfortunate for your species. The hologram vanished, leaving the chamber in tense silence. Sarah turned to face the assembled leaders, her expression grave but determined. They're exactly as arrogant as we hoped, she announced, triggering a series of subtle nods around the room. Madam President, with your permission, I'd like to activate Protocol Pandora. President Rivera, a woman whose silver hair belied her sharp mind, leaned forward. The risks are considerable, Sarah finished, but we've spent the last decade preparing for this moment. Every satellite we've launched, every space station we've built, every primitive defense system we've displayed, all of it designed to reinforce their presumptions about us. Dr. Patel, head of Earth's Science Division, pulled up a series of complex diagrams on his tablet. Commander Chen is right. The Helians' crystalline biology makes them vulnerable to the very frequencies we've been theoretically testing in our failed experiments. Experiments they've no doubt observed and dismissed. And their arrogance, General Santos asked, his scared face serious. You're certain it's their weakness? Sarah's smile grew slightly. The Helians evolved from crystalline formations. Their entire society is built on the premise of natural order and hierarchy. They literally cannot conceive of a species they view as inferior outsmarting them, which is exactly why they won't see this coming. President Rivera studied the assembled faces before her, then nodded slowly. Very well, Commander. You have authorization to proceed with Protocol Pandora. But Sarah, she added as the commander turned to leave, remember what happened to the last 17 civilizations that underestimated the Helians. With respect, Madam President, Sarah replied, her hand on the door. They're not the ones doing the underestimating today. As Sarah strode through the underground complex beneath Geneva, her mind raced through the countless simulations and preparations that had led to this moment. The Helians had first been detected approaching Earth's solar system 15 years ago. Instead of panicking, humanity had done something unprecedented. They had prepared in secret, while carefully crafting an image of technological inadequacy. Every failed weapons test, every primitive space mission, Every vulnerable defense system had been meticulously designed to paint a picture of a species barely worth the Hellions' attention. Now, as Sarah entered the secure command center deep beneath the Earth's surface, that deception was about to pay off. "Status report," she barked, and dozens of screens lit up around her. "Quantum mesh is at full capacity," Lieutenant Wong reported. "All dormant satellites are ready for activation. Subsurface resonators are primed," another officer added. "Waiting for your command." Sarah took her position at the central console, remembering all those who had sacrificed to reach this point. The accidents that had convinced the Hellions of human technological incompetence had not all been staged. Real lives had been lost to maintain this deception. "Begin transmission of the Pandora sequence," she ordered. "Let's show the Hellions what humanity is really capable of." As the first signals began broadcasting into space, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Tomorrow's sunrise would indeed bring a change to the galaxy, just not the one the Helion Empire was expecting. High above Earth's atmosphere, the massive Helion warships hung like crystalline mountains against the void of space. Their surfaces sparkled with an otherworldly beauty that belied their destructive capabilities. But beneath Earth's surface, in Command Center Alpha, Commander Sarah Chen watched as thousands of tiny dots appeared on the strategic display, each representing a previously dormant satellite now coming online. "Quantum mesh network at 100% coverage," Lieutenant Wong announced, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. "The Helions still haven't detected the activation signatures." Sarah nodded, watching as the seemingly primitive Earth satellites they'd launched over the past decade revealed their true nature. Each contained quantum-locked crystalline matrices, designed to resonate at frequencies that would interact with Helion biology. The aliens' greatest strength, their crystalline structure, was about to become their greatest vulnerability. "They're broadcasting, Commander," Dr. Paddle reported from his station. "Standard intimidation package. Showing us their weapon systems powering up, their ships moving into strategic positions." He paused, a slight smile crossing his face. "They're being rather theatrical about it." "Of course they are," Sarah replied. "They want us to see our doom approaching." Status on the subsurface resonators. "All stations report ready," Captain Martinez confirmed. "The geological survey ships we've been sending out for the past 5 years have placed them perfectly. The Helions think they're just monitoring tectonic activity." Sarah allowed herself a moment to appreciate the years of planning that had led to this moment. While the Helions had watched Earth's clumsy attempts at space exploration with contempt, humanity had been weaving a web of technologies specifically designed to target their vulnerabilities. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Initiate the harmonic cascade." Across the globe, deep beneath the Earth's crust, hundreds of resonators activated simultaneously. Each generated a precise frequency that, by itself, seemed nothing more than background noise. But as the waves combined and amplified through the quantum mesh network, they created a symphony of destruction, targeted specifically at crystalline structures. In space, the effect was subtle at first. Microscopic fractures began appearing in the outer layers of the Helion ships. The aliens, accustomed to being the most advanced species in any conflict, didn't even notice. Their own sensors, designed to detect conventional weapons and energy signatures, were blind to the weapon humanity had crafted. First signs of structural degradation appearing in their fleet, Dr. Puddle reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "The resonance is affecting their hull integrity, exactly as our models predicted." On the main screen, Sarah watched as the damage spread. The Helions, still preparing their show of force, remained oblivious to the attack that was literally shaking them apart at a molecular level. "Commander," Lieutenant Wong called out, "we're intercepting communications from their fleet. They're experiencing system malfunctions across all ships. Their crystalline computational matrices are degrading." Sarah squared her shoulders. "Increase power to the resonators by 15%. Let's see how their mighty empire handles being reduced to sand." The effect was immediate and devastating. The previously invisible fractures in the Helion ships became visible to the naked eye, spreading like spiderwebs across their crystalline surfaces. Panic began to spread through their fleet as systems failed, and their very bodies began to experience discomfort. Incoming transmission from High Ambassador Zirix, Martins announced. They're demanding to know what's happening. Put him through, Sarah ordered, straightening her uniform. It's time they learned who they're really dealing with. The holographic image of Zirix appeared, his crystalline form showing visible signs of stress. What treachery is this? He demanded, his translator barely keeping up with his agitated frequencies. Your primitive technology cannot possibly. Cannot possibly what, Ambassador? Sarah interrupted, her voice cold. Cannot possibly threaten the mighty Helion Empire. Cannot possibly understand the vulnerabilities of crystalline-based life forms. Cannot possibly have spent years preparing for this exact moment. Impossible. Zyrix vibrated in denial. We monitored your development. Your failures, your primitive attempts at spaceflight, were exactly what we wanted you to see, Sarah finished. While you were watching our rockets explode and our defense systems fail, we were learning everything about you. Every test, every failure, every accident was designed to keep you overconfident and blind to our true capabilities. The ambassador's colors shifted rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. Stop this attack immediately, or we will. You will what? Sarah's voice was sharp. Your weapons are failing. Your ships are literally cracking apart. Your entire fleet is trapped in a web of our making. The mighty Helion Empire, defeated not by primitive humans, but by your own arrogance. As if to emphasize her words, a massive crack appeared across Zerix's physical form, visible even through the hologram. The mighty ambassador's colors dulled in pain and fear. What do you want? He asked, his translator rendering his voice several octaves lower than before. Sarah leaned forward, her expression unyielding. First, you're going to order your fleet to stand down. Then, we're going to have a very different conversation about the future of galactic politics. One where humanity isn't just another species to be conquered, but a power to be reckoned with. As Zyrix's hologram flickered and faded, Sarah turned to her crew. Maintain resonance levels. Prepare Phase 2 of Protocol Pandora. She allowed herself a small smile. Let's show the galaxy that humanity doesn't bow to empires. We break them. As the Helion fleet hung paralyzed in Earth's orbit, Commander Sarah Chen led her team through the final preparations of Protocol Pandora's most daring phase. The massive crystalline flagship of the Empire, now riddled with microscopic fractures, loomed on the command center's main display. Infiltration team is ready, Captain James Rodriguez reported, his stealth suit absorbing light in waves of darkness. Behind him, 5 other operators checked their specialized equipment, tools designed specifically for this mission after years of studying Helion technology. Remember, Sarah addressed the team. The resonance attack has weakened their systems, but their internal security is still active. One wrong move, and we lose our advantage. We need to reach their central matrix. The team had trained for this moment in perfect replicas of Helion ship layouts, constructed from data gathered by seemingly primitive Earth probes that had actually been gathering detailed scans for years. Every step, every movement had been practiced thousands of times. Quantum entanglement transporters ready, Dr. Patil announced. Another failed technology the Helions had dismissed, except this time it worked perfectly. Coordinates locked on the designated breach point. Sarah nodded to Rodriguez. You have tactical command, Captain. Execute at will. The infiltration team gathered on the transport pad, their suits now tuned to match the exact frequency of the Helion ship's crystalline structure. In theory, they would appear as nothing more than minor power fluctuations to the alien sensors, initiating transport in 3, 2, 1. The team vanished in a flash of quantum energy, reappearing moments later in a darkened corridor aboard the Helion flagship. Crystal fragments crunched under their boots, evidence of the continuing effect of Earth's resonance attack. Movement ahead. Lieutenant Sophia Patel whispered through the tactical net. 3 Helian guards, showing signs of resonance distress. Rodriguez held up a hand, and the team pressed against the corridor walls. Their suits shifted color to match the crystalline surface perfectly. Another technology developed in secret, while humanity pretended to struggle with basic camouflage. The Helian guards passed by, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. The resonance attack was affecting their motor functions, just as the simulations had predicted. Once they were gone, Rodriguez led the team deeper into the ship. Central Matrix is 2 levels up, he vocalized. Remember, we need to reach the primary consciousness core. Without it, their entire command structure falls apart. The team moved like shadows through the ship, their movements silent and precise. Decades of watching the Helians, learning their patterns, and understanding their weaknesses had led to this moment. While the Empire had seen humans as primitive beings barely worth studying, humanity had been preparing for this infiltration with methodical patience. They encountered minimal resistance. Most of the crew was too distracted by the ship's deteriorating condition to notice the intruders. Those few who did spot them were quickly neutralized with targeted resonance pulses that disrupted their crystalline forms without shattering them completely. Central Matrix chamber ahead, Rodriguez reported back to Earth Command. Preparing for final breach. Sarah's voice came through clearly. Remember, we need their command codes intact. A complete victory requires more than just destruction. The massive doors to the Central Matrix loomed before them, their crystalline surface already showing signs of stress fractures. Lieutenant Patil moved forward, placing specially designed charges at key points. Charges set. Ready on your mark, Captain. Rodriguez took a deep breath. Execute. The charges detonated with precise frequencies, causing the doors to crumble into fine powder rather than shatter. Through the crystalline dust, the team entered the heart of the Helian Empire's power. The Central Matrix was a towering spire of pure crystal, pulsing with data and consciousness. At its base, High Ambassador Xerix and several other high-ranking Helians were frantically trying to stabilize their failing systems. Stop. Xerix's translator crackled with distortion. You don't understand what you're doing. The Matrix contains the collective knowledge of 17 civilizations. We understand perfectly, Rodriguez replied, his team moving to secure the room. That's exactly why we're here. Lieutenant Patil approached the Matrix, connecting their quantum interface device, disguised for years as a failed attempt at quantum computing, beginning data extraction. All their secrets, all their technologies, everything they stole from those civilizations, now accessible to us. Impossible. Xerix vibrated in denial. Your species, you were primitive, unworthy of our concern. That's what we wanted you to think, Rodriguez said, his voice cold. You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed what we wanted you to believe. And now, your empire falls not to superior firepower, but to superior strategy. As the data streamed from the Matrix to Earth's quantum servers, Sarah's voice came through again. Extraction complete. Execute final phase. Rodriguez nodded to his team. They placed resonance charges around the Central Matrix, not to destroy it, but to alter its fundamental frequency. The mighty database of the Helian Empire wouldn't be destroyed. Instead, it would be transformed, its power redirected to serve a new purpose. Your empire isn't ending today, Rodriguez told the assembled Helian leadership. It's being transformed. Earth isn't interested in conquest. We want cooperation. But first, you needed to learn that underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake your empire ever made. The charges activated, and the Central Matrix's crystal structure began to shift, its color changing from deep purple to clear white. The age of Helian dominance was over. A new era of galactic politics was about to begin, one shaped by the species they had dismissed as primitive only hours before. The news of the Helian flagship's capture spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. On thousands of worlds, crystalline communication arrays broadcast the unthinkable. Humanity, a species deemed primitive and unworthy of notice, had brought the mighty Helian Empire to its knees. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the transformed central matrix chamber, now a gleaming white crystal spire that pulsed with reformed energy. Around her, teams of human scientists worked alongside subdued Helian technicians, accessing centuries of accumulated knowledge. Report from the outer colonies. Lieutenant Wang's voice came through her neural link. The resonance wave has reached the farthest Helian outposts. Their entire network is compromised. Sarah nodded, watching as holographic displays showed the cascade of power shifting across the galaxy. Status of the subjugated worlds. Already responding to our broadcast, Captain Martins replied. The Trazari, the Voth, the Meridians, all 17 civilizations the Helians conquered are rising up. Our transmitted resonance frequencies gave them the tool they needed to break free. It had been the riskiest part of Protocol Pandora, not just defeating the Helians, but ensuring their fall didn't create a power vacuum that would lead to chaos. Humanity had prepared for this too, crafting a message of liberation rather than conquest. High Ambassador Zirix, now under guard, watched with dulled colors as his empire crumbled. You don't understand what you've done, his translator crackled. The empire maintained order. Without our control, the galaxy will descend into chaos. No, Sarah turned to face him. You never understood true order. Real stability doesn't come from domination. It comes from cooperation. She gestured to the transformed matrix. We're not destroying your empire's knowledge or infrastructure. We're reforming it, making it serve all species, not just yours. On the main display, reports continued to flood in. The quantum mesh network, originally designed to trap the Helian fleet around Earth, was now expanding across the galaxy. But instead of broadcasting destructive resonances, it carried something else. Hope. The Meridian fleet has secured their sector. Rodriguez reported from his position overseeing the military transition. The Trazari have already called for a Galactic Council, a real one this time, not a puppet show for Helian supremacy. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Years of planning, of playing the primitive species, had led to this moment. But the real work was just beginning. Begin Phase 4, she ordered. It's time to show the galaxy what real cooperation looks like. Across the transformed Helian ships, human engineers worked alongside their former enemies, modifying the crystalline technology that had once been a symbol of oppression. The resonance frequencies that had been weapons of liberation were being repurposed into tools of communication and connection. Commander, Dr. Patel called out, excitement in his voice. We've finished decoding the Matrix's core archives. The scientific knowledge here, it's beyond anything we imagined. Medical technologies that could end disease, energy systems that could power worlds without pollution, faster than light travel technologies we never dreamed possible. Knowledge that should have been shared, not hoarded, Sarah replied. Make sure every liberated world receives complete access to the archives. It's time for all species to advance together. The Helian guards, their crystalline forms now stabilized by modified resonance fields, watched in confusion as their carefully maintained hierarchy crumbled. In its place, something new was emerging. A galactic community based on mutual respect and shared progress. Message from Earth Command, Lieutenant Wang announced. President Rivera is ready to address the galaxy. Sarah straightened her uniform. Put her through to all channels. Let everyone hear humanity's real voice. The holographic form of President Rivera appeared, her presence commanding respect even across the vast distances of space. People of the galaxy, she began. Today marks not the end of an empire, but the beginning of a new era. Humanity never wanted conquest. We wanted conversation. We never sought dominion. We sought dialogue. As the president spoke, Sarah watched the galaxy's response on the tactical displays. Ships from formerly subjugated worlds were moving freely for the first time in generations. Ancient enemies were opening communications. The careful divisions the Helians had maintained were dissolving. The resonance attack, Xerix asked quietly. You could have used it to destroy us completely. We could have, Sarah agreed. But that would have made us no better than you. Instead, we chose to use it to break your control while preserving your people. The galaxy doesn't need another empire. It needs a community. As humanity's message of cooperation spread across the stars, the true victory became clear. The Helian Empire hadn't just been defeated, it had been transformed. In its place, a new galactic order was emerging, one built not on crystalline perfection and rigid hierarchy, but on the very qualities the Helians had dismissed: adaptability, cooperation, and the strength that comes from unity and diversity. The fall of an empire marked the rise of something greater, a future where no species would be dismissed as primitive, and where the combined knowledge of 1,000 worlds would serve not the few, but the many. 1 year after the fall of the Helian Empire, the newly constructed Galactic Assembly stood as a testament to change. Unlike the imposing crystalline structures of the old regime, this building incorporated architectural elements from all spacefaring species, including the sweeping glass curves favored by humans. Commander Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's first galactic representative, walked through the Assembly Hall's Garden of Harmony, where plants from 100 worlds grew together in carefully maintained ecological balance. Besides her, a transformed Xerix floated, his crystalline form now radiating the softer, more natural light. The Meridian delegation has approved the final trade agreements, Xerix reported, his translator now producing warm, clear tones. The last of the old empire's trade restrictions have been lifted. Sarah nodded, pausing to observe a earth rose blooming next to a crystalline flower from the Helian homeworld, and the technological integration program. Exceeding expectations, he replied. The combination of Helian crystalline, computing with human quantum mathematics, has revolutionized faster than light travel. Ships can now cross the galaxy in days instead of months. This was perhaps the greatest victory, not the defeat of an empire, but its transformation. The Helians, freed from their rigid hierarchical thinking, had proven to be invaluable partners in building a new galactic society. Their expertise, combined with human innovation and contributions from other species, was creating technologies that would have been impossible under the old order. Report from the Liberation Worlds Conference. Lieutenant Wang's voice came through Sarah's neural link. The last refugee resettlement programs are complete. Every species displaced by the old empire has been offered their worlds back. But many had chosen not to return to isolation. Instead, mixed communities were springing up across the galaxy. Species that had once been separated by Helian decree were now living together, trading ideas and cultures as freely as goods. In the Assembly's main chamber, representatives from over 50 species gathered for the day's session. The old Helian power structure of domination and tribute had been replaced by a system of mutual cooperation and shared advancement. Even the chamber's design reflected this change. Rather than rigid hierarchical tiers, the seats were arranged in graceful curves that encouraged face-to-face dialogue. The education exchange program has exceeded all projections, Dr. Paddle reported, joining them in the garden. Over 1 million students from various species are now studying on worlds not their own. The cross-pollination of ideas is leading to breakthroughs in every field. Sarah smiled, remembering the long years of preparation that had led to this moment. And what of the warning beacons? In place throughout the galaxy, Xerix confirmed. Any species achieving spaceflight will now be greeted with messages of welcome and offers of assistance, not demands for tribute. The beacons were perhaps the most important change. No other emerging civilization would face what humanity had, the threat of submission or extinction. Instead, they would find a galactic community ready to welcome them as equals. In orbit above them, ships of all designs moved through the space lanes, crystalline Helian vessels alongside sleek human cruisers and the organic ships of the Meridians. The quantum mesh network, once a weapon, now served as the galaxy's nervous system, connecting all species in real-time communication. The last of the old empire's automated defense systems have been reprogrammed. Rodriguez reported via hologram, his team having spent the year converting tools of oppression into instruments of protection. The galaxy's borders are now truly open to all peaceful travelers. Sarah made her way to the assembly chamber, preparing for the day's session. The agenda included proposals for new scientific initiatives, cultural exchange programs, and the establishment of more mixed species colonies. But more importantly, it included the admission of 3 newly spacefaring civilizations into the galactic community. A different galaxy than we imagined, Xerix observed as they entered the chamber. When we first detected your species, we thought we were the pinnacle of evolution. How wrong we were. The pinnacle is something we reach together, Sarah replied, taking her seat as the session began. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not through dominance, but through dialogue. As the chamber filled with representatives of a united galaxy, Sarah reflected on humanity's journey. They had faced the threat of extinction and emerged not just victorious, but transformative. The galaxy had needed not another empire, but a catalyst for change. The stars above now held not threat but promise. In laboratories, classrooms, and communities across thousands of worlds, species that had once been enemies now worked together to unlock the universe's mysteries. The age of empires was over. The age of unity had begun. And humanity, the species once dismissed as primitive, had helped to light the way toward a dawn that would never set.